The US slapped China with massive tariffs, hoping to bring them to their knees economically. But instead of folding, China fires back with absolute confidence. In this clip, Victor Gao explains why China isn't just ready for a trade war, they're prepared to fight it to the very end. Let's break it down and see why these tariffs might end up hurting the US more than anyone expected.
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
China doesn't just have the upper hand in this trade war. They're operating on an entirely different timeline and mindset than the US. First, Victor makes a crucial point about the global market. The US isn't the totality of the world economy. Sure, America might be a big player, but at the end of the day, it only accounts for about 15% of global imports. That means 85% of the world's economic activity happens outside the US. And China has been strategically building relationships with those other markets for years through initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative. China has deepened ties with countries across Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and even Europe. Later, we'll hear from the Hungarian foreign minister about some of the investments China has been making into Hungary. So when Victor says, "Be my guest," to the idea of the US shutting itself out of the China market, he's not bluffing. They've got options. But what really stands out is the long-term view. When Victor says, China has been here for 5,000 years, we survived, it's a powerful reminder that China operates on a completely different scale of history and resilience. The United States, by comparison, is still a young nation. For China, this trade war isn't about winning or losing in the short term. It's about enduring and thriving over centuries. And let's not forget, they've already proven their ability to adapt and rise from challenges throughout history.
You hear Donald Trump say China wants a deal, it just doesn't know how to go about it. They're proud people. J.D. Vance talks about Chinese peasants. What do you make of their conduct in this respect?
If J.D. Vance thinks that he's dealing with the peasants in China, and I'm proud to be a descendant of the peasants. Most of us are descendants of the peasants anyway. That's our tradition. We are farmers before, but now we are one of the leading industrialized economies in the world. So I'm sorry, J.D. Vance doesn't know what he's talking about. And therefore, I don't think there will be China-US dialogue unless the United States changes its attitude towards China. Deal with China as it is, show respect to China, show respect to the Chinese people, and don't try to impose your prejudice and biased view about China or about the rest of the world.
Victor also calls out the dismissive attitude some American politicians have towards China, pointing specifically to J.D. Vance's comments about Chinese peasants. This hits a nerve not because it's offensive, but because it shows how out of touch some Western leaders are. As Victor points out, many Chinese people take pride in their agricultural roots, but today China is no longer just a farming society. It's one of the world's leading industrialized economies, producing everything from computer goods to cutting-edge technology. Dismissing China as backward or primitive is not only inaccurate, but also dangerous if you're trying to negotiate with them. Finally, his closing statement is worth reflecting on. Show respect to China, don't try to impose your prejudice. This speaks volumes about the broader geopolitical tension between the two nations. The US approach often seems rooted in assumptions of superiority, but China isn't looking for charity. They want mutual respect. Until Washington shifts its tone and recognizes China as an equal partner on the global stage, meaningful dialogue just won't happen. And frankly, given how China has achieved independently, they don't seem eager to beg for negotiations anyway.
China is now a top investor in Hungary. 17 billion euros of investments, mostly in the automotive industry, are going on in Hungary by Chinese companies. But I can tell you one thing for sure. Never ever they have confused any political issue with the investments. They have never put together any kind of political expectation to these investments. So we are now becoming number 2 in the world when it comes to the production of electric batteries because of the Chinese investment.
This clip featuring Hungary's foreign minister is a perfect example of how China leverages economic diplomacy to strengthen its global influence, and it's working brilliantly. What stands out here isn't just the staggering 17 billion euros in Chinese investments flowing into Hungary, but also the strategic nature of these deals and their ripple effects on Europe's economy. So, first, the fact that China has become Hungary's top investor, especially in cutting-edge industries like electric vehicle batteries, is a game changer. Thanks to these investments, Hungary is now poised to become the second largest producer of EV batteries in the world, trailing only behind China itself. This isn't just about creating jobs or boosting GDP. It's about positioning Hungary as a key player in the future of green energy and automotive technology. And guess what? None of this would even be possible without China stepping in where Western investors might have hesitated. Maybe this is the most striking part of the foreign minister's statement. China doesn't mix politics with business. According to the minister, Beijing hasn't attached any political strings to these investments. That's huge because it contrasts sharply with how Western powers often operate. For instance, when the US or EU offers aid or investment, there's frequently an expectation that the recipient countries adopt certain policies, whether it's aligning with NATO, supporting sanctions, or adhering to specific quote-unquote human rights standards. China, on the other hand, takes a no-strings-attached approach, which makes its partnerships more appealing to many nations, including Hungary. And let's not overlook the symbolism here. As tensions rise between the West and China, Hungary, a member of the European Union, is doubling down on its ties with Beijing. This sends a clear message. Countries are increasingly unwilling to choose sides in the US-China rivalry, if doing so means sacrificing economic growth. Instead, they're prioritizing pragmatic partnerships that deliver tangible benefits, regardless of geopolitical posturing.
I'm not moving my production to the United States. Are you nuts? I make everything in Italy because it's better quality, not because it's cheaper. You want me to move my production of glasses out of the country that invented glasses to the United States? You may as well tell me to move my tortilla factory that makes the world's best tacos al pastor to Italy. And another thing, because I'm fired up. These companies that claim to make eyewear in the US, guess where they get all their materials? It's all made in China. Guess where they're putting the last screw in the US? Every single person I work with at every link in my supply chain is a small family-owned company. I don't care if they're based in Italy, if they're based in Mexico, if they're based in the US.
As she said, even companies claiming to manufacture in the US often depend heavily on Chinese materials or components. I mean, this underscores how deeply intertwined global supply chains are. Whether it's raw materials, intermediate parts, or final assembly, China plays a critical role at almost every stage of production for countless industries. Slapping tariffs on Chinese goods doesn't magically bring manufacturing back to America. It just raises the cost for businesses and consumers while forcing them to scramble for alternatives that may not exist yet.
People are asking me whether I'm afraid of the potential price increase in China caused by the new American tariff policy. So I looked around my house for some American products. The only thing that I can find is this iPhone 16 that I use for TikTok. And it's probably also made in China. So no, I don't think the new tariff law will change my life at all.
This just reinforces the point that I've been making. China's domestic market is robust enough to absorb shocks like these tariffs, from electronics to clothing to food. Chinese consumers have access to plenty of affordable, high-quality alternatives produced locally. In fact, China's push for self-sufficiency means they're increasingly able to replace foreign goods altogether. So there you have it. China isn't just standing its ground, it's proving that resilience and long-term vision can outlast any short-sighted tariff policy. Victor Gao's message is clear. China doesn't need the US market to thrive, and they're ready to play the long game, while the world watches America's strategy backfire. What do you think? Is this trade war really about economics, or is it the start of a much bigger geopolitical shift? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'd love to hear where you stand. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more videos like this. So until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again. Bye.